Oh, hey. Hi.
Did the whole Star Wars swipe transition.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know what we're calling this. I'm calling it demystifying DMing,
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, that
the
works.
DM chat show version.
Yeah, we're hanging out and chatting.
Yeah, because there's no Soldiers of Lich Queen this week.
Hmm.
So maybe we'll do this every time there isn't a Soldiers of Lich Queen.
Yeah, yeah, be cool.
Hello, chat. Uh,
Hello.
yeah, I guess I can do announcements for this.
Yeah.
Um, we're still raising money for Color of Change. It's a great charity. It's indefinite raising for it too, so that's our charity of choice for this channel. So check it out. It's going to be great stuff. We've raised money for it already because of our anniversary stream we did 2 weeks ago, almost three. Holy! Um, so that's fun. I'm also working on stuff for the Patreon. Oh shit, yeah! Tomorrow, the first Patreon adventure goes live on the Patreon. It's already been done. I've developed it. It's already been made. It's a haunted house. So if you like haunted houses in your D&D, check it out. You just need to be a $5 Patreon tier or higher, and I might just lower it to all Patreon tiers, depending how things go. But we don't have any patrons, so whatever. Um,
I think you have one.
yeah. Um, so that's what's happening. We got some new shows in the works on the channel, which is really fun.
Hmm.
Um, so that's gonna be exciting. May, like the last week of May, the last Sunday of May, we're gonna start a Ravenloft campaign with a new book that's coming out. The show's been cast already. Um, and then April 7th, we got a concrete date now. April 7th will be the next campaign for the Beneath the Tide crew. Embers of Autumn. It's gonna be much more sandboxy and
Nice.
fantasy, more high fantasy than Beneath the Tide is. I'm gonna weave in some like political intrigue and some Lord of the Rings esque just Lord of the Rings tropes. Uh, Not the gross ones, though, not the
Yeah.
dated ones. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Soldiers of the Lich Queen's still going.
Hmm.
Our schedule, everything. As for announcements, we're on Anchor FM as well, doing podcast stuff. The Ravenloft campaign will go on there as well, because it's easier just to start a new podcast or start a new campaign on the podcast, than instead of like going back through like 40 odd episodes of backlog to do.
Yeah,
Um,
how'd that go for Beneath the Tide?
Not fun. Um, Still not caught up. So yeah, we'll be taking questions from chat, I guess, at some point. If there's people in
Yeah,
chat, that'd be fun.
yeah.
About
Probably just throw out, like, if you have any questions, we can. We don't have a schedule here. We don't have a script. We're just gonna be rambling. So,
Yeah. So I don't know what it's gonna go. Maybe we'll ask each other questions. Who knows?
yeah, yeah.
But if you don't know, I am the founder of the channel, Justin. I started it in 2018 as a YouTube only thing. Back in the day when everything was rough because I didn't know what I was doing.
Gotta learn. Gotta learn someday. So,
um, it was originally going to be a podcast, and the first, I don't know if I told this to everybody, but the first session was going to be it was going to be an audio podcast. It was going to be set on a train, and it was going to be a murder mystery on a train, and that would be the start of the campaign. And then that kind of just fell apart, and I got a new cast, 3 people,
hmm.
and we did our first ever session of the city below, and then just kind of spiraled out from there.
Yeah. I realize you're breaking naming convention with the next campaign because so far you've had some sort of
Yeah,
beneath or below in the name.
yeah, yeah. That's right. City below, beneath the tide, and then the next
Yeah.
one's Embers of Autumn,
Yep.
which the name doesn't make sense anymore.
That's okay. Titles don't need to make. We don't need to know that. You've got plenty of time before the title needs to make sense. First 20 episodes, nothing needs to make
Because
sense.
the first session of that our next campaign was going to be a bunch of dragons attacking the capital city at the harvest, and then I'm like, no,
Hmm.
I don't want to introduce the BBEG right away again. So
Yep.
instead,
That is such.
it's just going to be a calm session where everyone gets together, they get sent on a job to do, and then
Hmm.
spirals
Nice.
up from there.
Yeah. I feel like it is when it comes to starting a campaign. like there is a temptation, especially as the DM as you're planning it out, to start at the end and work backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, oh, I know who the final boss is going to be, and then you kind of work backwards from there. And I feel like where you start from when planning a campaign, just like anybody, not like you specific, generally you, not specific you. Like anytime when you start planning a campaign, wherever you start from, things kind of get fuzzier as you get further away from it. So it's like it's like starting from the end. I always feel like I get to the beginning, I'm just like, well, okay, how do I start this thing now?
Yeah.
But like, if you start from the beginning, kind of focused, and then move forward, I feel like that's like if you're excited about the beginning of the campaign, I feel like that's a really good place to start, because then it's like that's where we're at, that's where we're starting. It's not you're not trying to rush to get to the stuff you're excited about, like you're already there.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
I,
learned
I'm
that
not trying.
lesson.
I mean, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. I'm not trying to be like pointed towards your anything, because you know your stuff is great.
Yeah, but
I very much enjoyed Beneath the Tide.
and it's ending soon, and it's going to be so much fun. We got like
Yeah.
three sessions left. This
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, the Wednesday after, and the Wednesday after that, and then we're gonna do some one shots, and then start it all over again.
Nice. I think I have an idea for my character for the Ogden one shot. I'm thinking of doing Oath of the Ancients, Eladrin Paladin,
Ooh,
all of the teleporting.
that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Level 5, and then a level 20 wizard guiding everybody through it.
Oh, that's gonna be so. I love unbalanced stuff like that.
And it's gonna be like encounters that will be a challenge. Like maybe some of the encounters will be a challenge for like a 20 level wizard too. So everyone's just like, wait,
Oh
what?
boy. I mean, that's the thing. That is the thing with fifth edition, because fifth edition has that bounded accuracy idea where it's like
Yeah.
like a level one character can pretty much technically hit anything in the Dungeon Master's Guide, or not in the dungeon, but in the
Monster
Monster
manual.
Manual.
Yeah.
You can't hit Tiamat, but like you can hit an ancient red dragon. You need to roll a 19 or higher, but you can do it.
Yeah, Tiamat's got an AC of like 30.
Yep. But which that's fun. I've always
Yeah.
kind of I have always kind of wanted to do like a campaign, kind of like you're running with the Ogden one shot, where it's like you have a main. So the thought was it's like you have a main character, and then everybody else kind of plays like sidekicks.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have like you have like a party for each person, and you rotate through the parties to like do different stories, and then like the everyone's main character can come together for like crossover episodes.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah, it'd be like an MCU style of running a campaign, where it's like you have your solo movies sessions,
Oh,
where it's
that's
like
cool. Yeah.
you have like someone is playing like the Thor character, so you have like everybody else is playing like less important character, like sidekick type characters. Then like everyone else gets a turn to be the main character, and then you can come together and have all the main characters like work together for like team up sessions.
That could be fun.
It would just be a lot of it would be a lot of work, because everyone would be playing like for a 4-person party, everyone would be playing 4 characters. Not at a time,
No, no,
but
no. Yeah.
still a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, I've noticed if people are playing two characters at once, it's fun for maybe everybody
Mm-hmm.
else to like watch them interact because it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man.
It works. It can work well for small groups. Like I've played in a campaign where the DM has played, or I've played in a group where we only had like 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like in order to have a full party, each of us played 2 characters. So we had a full party of 4, and like that worked out pretty well. We just like generally it worked if it was like one of them was like the more extroverted and one was the more introverted
Yeah.
kind of person. So it's like you have your one that does the talking, your one that kind of just hangs back and is mostly around for combat help.
Hmm.
Then we added a third person in, and like 3 people playing 6 characters gets a little nuts.
Yeah. When I was running home games, which I stopped doing in 2017.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's when I was like rusty and really bad at DMing. um, it was only a three-person party, and three-person parties can get a little. They could be tricky a little. I think.
Hmm.
I think if you're at even numbers, it's best. But yeah, I didn't know how to DM back then, so it was a lot of, oh, this monster looks really cool in the monster manual. I'm just gonna throw it in.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna read its like stat block. I'm not gonna read its description. I'm just gonna toss it in. So they were, I think, third level, second level. I think they were second level, and I had them fight a mummy lord.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, oh no, this doesn't work because it, oh, yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah, I've learned some stuff.
That's when you learn about balance.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I should pay attention to the CR. Maybe
Hmm.
nah. Even now, I don't pay attention to the CR because it still doesn't really, to me, doesn't make a difference because you could have like a 10th level party and have an intellect devour, which is CR2,
Hmm.
just wipe out a character instantly.
Yep.
Because it's one of those, it's like drains somebody and then it just incapacitates them and eats their brain. If they fail to save, they die.
Yep.
And I really like using creatures that like reduce ability scores, and
I've noticed. Yeah.
they're so much fun. Um,
Hmm.
I homebrewed one for the Wild Mount campaign we do on Wednesdays as well. Because you know how shadows do strength draining?
Hmm.
I made a cold version of that doesn't reduce your strength or con. It reduces your dex because it's kind of playing on like how,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know how if you like you're outside in the cold, or especially like noticed when I was like in school and you'd come and you try like write with a pencil and your hands all like you can't
Hmm.
because you're
Because your hands are, yeah, you're still numb from the
so
cold.
that was the idea, like it drains their dexterity,
Hmm.
but then when it drained their dexterity, it would also reduce their armor class
Oh, that's true.
because
That's
they'd
true.
be slowing down, so they'd make them easier to hit, and
Yeah.
oh, it was gross.
Yeah. I forget. Does heavy armor? If you're wearing heavy armor, because that's just like a flat number. It doesn't add your dex. Does that still reduce your armor class then?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. But yeah, it was getting gross because like their dex scores were getting dropped real low, so their AC was turning into single digits, and
Hmm.
oh, it was just so fun. I like monsters like that. I like when like, monsters are like different and they're not just like monsters that just pummel people.
Hmm.
So notice a lot of the monsters just have the same kind of stat blocks. Just they attack and they don't really have anything cool to them.
Yeah, it's just like, well, they're a big old stack of hit points that you need to chop away at like a tree,
Which is
knock them down.
which is why I've been like more invested now in like reading their descriptions in the book
Hmm.
because it gives you a different idea how they play,
Yeah.
which is cool. Because yeah, when I first started, I was just throwing in monsters that looked cool,
Yep.
and now it's more like what monsters make sense for where they are. Because like if you're underwater, you're not gonna find like a red ancient red dragon. You could, maybe it's been like put inside a big bubble
Yeah.
that's floating around in a bubble, but yeah, I've been having lots
Troll
of
with a
fun.
snorkel.
Yeah, or someone cast water breathing on it, but
Yeah.
I've been having like so much fun just like reading the monster manual actually, but also like all the other like books that are coming out with monsters because they're like, it feels like they're like finally embracing like just uniqueness, and it's so cool.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm so excited for the Ravenloft book because they're bringing out all these cool monsters from the Ravenloft setting in the past, and there's some fucked up ones in there. Like I think they're called the Hollow Ones. I don't remember what they're called. The Boneless, actually, they're called the Boneless, and they're undead that don't have any bones. That's the
Gross.
name, and they can squeeze into very narrow spaces.
Oh, they're like an ooze.
Yeah, like an ooze or like the chokers in the monster
Mm-hmm.
manual. I think chokers are in the monster manual, but little like undead that can squeeze into like crevices, and then they hop out and they just rip people apart. I'm like, oh yes.
Nice.
And like, there's gonna be like rules in that book on how to like take existing monsters in uh, like D&D's history that are in the monster manual and like adapt them to a Ravenloft setting, which is I'm
Oh,
very
that's cool.
intrigued by because I want to do like a horror, like an undead Tarask.
No, no.
Yeah, but gotta. This is some questions because it's just rambling at this point. There's no questions in chat, but I got a question for you.
Oh yeah, what's up?
What has been your favorite combat encounter to run
Mm.
while on the channel, or I'll say outside the channel as well. Um, oh, well, there's a question. I'll ask this one first, and then I'll ask that one.
Okay.
Um, so, what's been your favorite ever combat encounter to run both on the channel and maybe in your home games, and your favorite encounter to fight in both? channel and home game,
Oh
and
boy,
then I'll answer
okay.
it after you do.
Okay. Let me think. So probably let's see. Fights to run. Favorite fights to run. I was really happy with how the giant mech colossus fight with you guys.
That one was so fun.
That was fun. There was a lot of there like everyone had something to do. There was a lot going on. It was very
I
dynamic.
was
Like
trying to
there's
cheese it with my bag of holding.
yeah. But like I'm always happy when I get stuff like that where it's like everyone has something to do and it's not like for me when I think about encounters, the main thing I try to avoid is encounters being like chopping down a tree where it's
Yeah,
like you're just hacking away. You get up next to it, you stand there and you just start hacking away and it's just like a war of attrition at that point. You can pretty much just go back and forth and just be making attack rolls.
which gets really
And it's like,
boring if it's a long encounter,
yes.
especially. Yeah.
Hmm. So it's like something like that where it's like there's like I think you read this in so many DM tips, just like have goals that are not just kill the enemy, like get here, stop this, grab that, protect this, like anything like that. I think really helps with those, uh, with encounters, which makes them the one, and then it makes the ones where it's just like fight and kill this person like stand out even more.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna be fighting and killing Asmodeus, and it's like I'm pretty sure that's just the goal right there. Just kill him. That's
Oh,
it. That's
there's
the
I got other little things peppered in, so people aren't
oh boy,
just cutting
oh
him
boy,
down like a tree.
yeah. Um, and then I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think.
One week.
It's been 1 week since the other. Okay, copyright.
Yeah.
Let's see. Fights to. What were some really? What were some? I mean, what was it? I mean, I have fun as Ash just doing ridiculous damage to things, but
Especially with the trident.
yeah. Oh, so much. It's so crazy. But I think that I really liked. I mean, I really liked recently the wizard fight in the tower. Even though, like, I honestly didn't get to. I think one of the reasons is because, like, I got very nerfed in that fight because, like, I got paralyzed quickly and
Yep.
then plane shifted out, and then
Yep.
I had to like, plane shift myself back. So it was like, yeah, there's a lot happening, but just like watching it was entertaining for me, even just like even though I was out because like there was the anti magic. I think it's. I love stuff where there's the high stakes where it was like, yeah, if he just is allowed to keep doing what he's gonna do, then like we're just gonna die very quickly. But then like
Yeah.
Noose had the anti magic field, which then was this, there's this very fine line protecting us from instant death, basically. And yeah, I really like those high stakes moments like that where it's like it feels dire, but it also feels like you can do something about that, but like
Yeah.
you're you're on the edge of death.
That fight was is I like also like that encounter was never like a sure encounter to happen either.
Hmm.
It was just like
Hmm.
one of those encounters that could be a possibility if things went a certain way. And
Right.
I designed it to, if they do fight him, it is considered a very deadly encounter because this is a lich who's been kind
Hmm.
of trapped away for millennia, but also he's kidnapped. Well, he made a deal with the Lady of Pain, who, for those who don't know, she's a very powerful entity in the
Mm.
D&D multiverse. She resides in the city of Sigil. Um,
Hmm.
she's super powerful. Like I think she's the most powerful entity in the entirety.
I think it's
Um,
like I don't, yeah, it's like I know the gods like will like do what she says.
she's oh so strong.
Hmm.
So I had this lich kind of make a deal with the Kolya Root, which are like the people who manage the laws in Sigil. I don't remember 100%. But he had a Marut as a bodyguard, and he like trapped the Marut and then studied the Marut to construct a body for his skull because he was just a demi lich. So he's just a little floating skull, but he built this huge like construct body around him based on the Marut. So the Maruts have auto hits when they punch. They auto hit. Poof. So that was playing into it. That encounter was just so fun. And then divination wizards
Hmm.
are very good.
Yeah.
And the lich dude got feeble minded, I think, near the end, and it just
Hmm.
yeah, that was a good one. Any others that
Hmm.
you can think of that you enjoyed? The Frostworm.
Um, You think? The Frostworm fight was great. Oh, I love that one, especially because again, that was one where it was like we had a goal. The goal was just like kill this guy, but it wasn't like there's a difference when it's like there's a difference when it's like we're in a fight and we need to win the fight, and like I want this person dead. Like
Hmm.
there's a difference where it's like I think like when I think about it in terms of like when something is less interesting, it's like we just need to win the fight. When it's more interesting, it's like no, I want that man in the ground. Like I personally, I want him dead, and I want to make it happen.
Yep.
And it's like that was the case with that guy
Because he was
where
just ugh.
mhm. Like the worm was a survival fight. The worm was like, oh, we need to like we need to kill this thing. We need to make sure it's dead. Like we're kind of obligated to, but like the guy was like, you need to die, sir. Like you are gross.
Oh yeah, and just the party splitting up, half the party to fight the worm, half the party to engage with this guy and his guards was just
Mhm.
so much fun.
Yep, and then Eclipse just murdering him,
One
and
turn
like,
essentially.
yep. I was like the we had pretty much like overwhelming success up there in our skybox, but like it felt earned. It didn't feel too easy. It was just like, yeah, no, we had a plan, we executed it, it went very well. And then like we've gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, just cleaning up guards, and of course I'm gonna just wipe the floor with them.
Oh man, it was so good. And then magic missiling all the ones that were running away, and the people in the audience. Yeah,
You're all terrible people.
they are. Cool.
Yeah.
I think for me, the best, my favorite one that I've fought in. I haven't fought in many because DM. I DM
Right.
a lot. Hmm. Favorite combat encounter. Okay, easy. It was a one shot. Because I talk about it all the time when we talk about combat. When we were level 20 one shot you ran, and I played a Way of the Long
Oh.
Death Monk, and I one shot basically soloed a beholder in like one turn.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. That
Yeah.
felt so badass. Um,
Right.
that entire fight, like culminating up to that, was so much fun. Um, Also, the
The
fight
lit
with the
writing.
Warforged construct.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That one was so
I,
much fun.
I had so much fun just being a lich riding a Draco Lich.
Yeah,
Mhm.
playing liches is so much fun
Yeah.
because they're just so like powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you do what I did to my Demi Lich and give them a legendary action, let them cast spells.
Yep.
um,
That was why we needed that anti magic field. Because otherwise, it was like we're just gonna die here.
yeah, and Demi Liches have some really fun abilities. I borrowed one from a Sararak who is a Demi Lich in one of the older adventures that they adapted, but he can suck out people's souls just as an action. And they go to
Wow.
little gems in his skull, and I was going to do that to somebody. But then the encounter started going real sideways, and I'm like, maybe I'll hold off on that because I don't want to. I don't want to TPK.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like he was getting ready. Like he was like when the Marut came in to help, he was getting ready to just say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna start draining these fools." And Feeble Mind, the next turn he was gonna use it, and then boom, Feeble Mind, and it's like,
Yep.
well. But favorite encounters I've run, the Frostworm is probably my favorite.
That was really good.
Because it was just so much fun, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like one of those encounters where it feels like the characters are chopping. Just, does that
Mm-hmm.
hit? Yeah, it hits. Yeah, that hits. Cool, and that keeps going. So that was a lot of fun. Um, but I also like when I design an encounter that's supposed to be deadly and it turns out it's not, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
flipped on the head. Like recently, the fight on Old Newport where you guys arrived there because the to get Galen and the cross was there floating in the sky and you're
Mm-hmm.
looking for the trident. That fight was supposed to be brutal, but people split up, went into the cross, and then the conflict continued into the cross, and it was deadly. Someone did die,
That's true.
and then you just kind of walked through the cross soloing it with that trident.
I only blew up a few people. We just kind of well, no, there was a room with the cultists where it was like two fireballs and we're done.
But yeah, the Frostworm I think is my favorite encounter I've ever run. Um, the fight with the Garistro and the Baylor
Oh, that was a good one.
was a
That
good
was a
one
good one.
because that one was messy.
Hmm.
Yeah, the encounter with Kendar, the Demi-Lich in the Marut body, was pretty cool. Um, Someone died in that fight too.
Yeah.
Um, and now the only really encounter I have left now for Beneath the Tide is with Asmodeus, and I've been
Yeah.
crafting it for like I've had the general idea of how the final encounter was going to be for a while now, but I finally like sat down and started like figuring it out, and there's so many moving parts that I'm so excited about it, and I think it's going to be the like a part of me wants to go easy so I don't get a TPK, but then a part of me is like, well, this is the big bad. He wants to win, so he's not going to go easy. He's going to
Hmm.
use all of his abilities at his disposal, which means he has multiple ninth level spell slots. So
Yep.
he's a god. So
Hmm.
it's going to be yeah. I'm anxious about it. I'm so anxious about it because of the possibility of a TPK.
Yep. Yeah, I realize we don't have a anti magic field can't save us for this one because he is a god. Anything he
Yep.
does ignores anti magic.
Yep. Anti magic does not work on gods, which
Yep.
is brutal.
Oh yeah.
And he's got ninth level spells, and he's got things in
Hmm.
there that are going to be really interesting. I will have to take anxiety meds before that encounter because I know it's going to make me just.
Hmm.
And it might be a long one too because again, I'm getting like I've been looking at like videos on how to run kind of like a final encounter,
Hmm.
especially if it's with a god. And I've been looking at a lot of like stuff from Critical Role where they fought Vecna, and
Hmm.
then after he's dead, destroyed or whatever, when we have one more session where everyone kind of just chills out
Yeah.
and deals with their consequences.
Yep.
Um, cool. How do you go about adapting creatures like that? Like bringing a creature from one setting to another? Don't know. I'm curious to see how they're gonna do it in the book. It's probably gonna be like how to make your monster scary. Um, but like I think it's not that hard. I don't think to adapt creatures from one setting to another. Like the Warforged Colossus that you put in Solar's Lich Queen, that's an Eberron creature.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've
Yeah.
taken creatures from other settings and thrown them into Beneath the Tide and stuff. So yeah, it's been
Yeah.
it's not too difficult. I am curious to see how they're going to do it for Ravenloft, though, like how to make a beholder more scary. Because
Hmm.
I want to know how do you make a beholder more scary? Do you give it more eye stalks with different abilities? But then the more eye stalks you get, there's a chance that there's a lower chance you get the fun eye stock conditions because it's all
Right.
random. Or you just build a beholder and say fuck the randomness. I'm going to choose what eye raise it does.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed every single time I've run a beholder, it never gets to use the fun eye stalks.
Hmm.
It's either sleep, telekinesis, charm.
Hmm.
I never get death or disintegrate, and those are like the fun ones.
Yep. Like beholders are, and the other thing is like beholders are supposed to be the like some of the scariest monsters in D&D for like their level, but it's like a single darkness or no, not darkness because
Anti magic
they're
eye.
central. Yeah, they have the
Yeah.
anti-magic eye, but like if you can put up like you can create like non-magical concealment because they need to be able to see you. Like,
Yeah.
there goes that.
I think I've only ever ran two beholder fights on the channel.
I think so, yeah.
There was the
There was a one,
one in
there was a final boss.
the final boss for City Below was a beholder,
Yeah, that
and
was fun. That was a good fight.
that fight was so much fun. Um, yeah, someone polymorphed the beholder into a rat or something. The rat fell,
Hmm.
but like your character at the time was like grappling it on top, and I just like well the rat's gonna take fall damage. So the rat took fall damage, and your character landed on top of the rat, and then the rat reverted back to the beholder. Just
Hmm.
that fight was fun. It was trying to levitate people into the pit in the middle and drop them in the pit, but it
Oh
never
yeah.
happened. Um, I love beholders, but I think yeah, if you stay out of their anti magic eye, then
Hmm.
you also can't see where it is either. It's
That's true.
invisible. Um, but like if you can just stay away from a beholder's anti magic stuff, you're good. Um, yeah, death tyrants are also very cool. Undead
That's
beholders.
true. Hmm.
What's your favorite monster?
Ooh. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Do I have a favorite mod? I probably do. There's probably something that I end up putting out in every campaign. I think my players have called me out for. I'm trying to remember. I feel like my players have called me out for putting the same creature in every campaign I've run, and I can't remember it right
What
now.
creature is it, chat?
Uh, what is it? I feel like mummies show up. I end
Mummies
up
are
with
good.
mummies a lot.
Mummies are so good.
Yeah, but I'm like not too attached to them. It's weird. I do like rocks. Rocks are cool.
Rocks are so cool.
Just gigantic bird. Just
I killed a
enormous.
character in Curse of Strahd with a rock
Nice.
because there's a mountain they go by, and if they go by the second time, it swoops down and tries to
No.
grapple a creature. And it says they have a better chance of survival if they have horses with them because it goes for a horse. What if
Mm,
there aren't any beasts of burdens? It goes for a character, and it picked up Rose's character, who plays well Drusilla. For those of you, you know that. And she picked up her character, and I mean, killed her. Rocks are cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'm also a big fan of. I am a big fan of vampires just because like
Yes.
they're monsters, but they're intelligent, and they have just because of the amount of like stories and lore we have about vampires just in pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just naturally comes over, and I think to me the vampires are some of the best made monsters in the monster manual
Mm-hmm.
because it's like they've got a laundry list of strengths and weaknesses where it's like they've got the sunlight, they've got the running water, they've got the stake, they've got the can't come in without asking, they've
Yep.
got like all of those things means that like you can really like there's the whole point of strength of Curse of Strahd. It's like you can put a lower level party up against a vampire, but like they have these very specific weaknesses
Mm-hmm.
that you can exploit and then in order to survive, and like I think that creates an interesting dynamic. It creates that sense of where like knowledge when it comes to fighting monsters, like knowledge has value.
I think that's why there might be so much like why Curse of Strahd is like considered one of the best adventure modules
Hmm.
for fifth edition because it is very much a. Apparently, you use bullets a lot.
I do use
Bullets are
bullets a lot. Yeah,
great,
they
so
are.
they're so good. But no, I
Yeah.
think as for me at least, I'm a huge fan of like the early Hammer horror films.
Hmm.
So like Dracula, Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So playing Curse of Strahd was just like my adventure, my perfect kind of
Hmm.
setting because that's my jam. And the whole adventure is built around you moving through Barovia, finding these items, these artifacts to
Hmm.
help you kill a vampire, which is very much akin to those movies where you're hunting for like
Hmm.
stuff. And when you finally go like fight Strahd in his castle, you have this huge like dungeon delve in this weird kind of
Hmm.
castle that doesn't make sense, and it's just like chef's kiss. It's so good, and there's probably a reason why Strahd is considered why so many people like Strahd,
Hmm.
even though he's creepy. He's not a good person. He's an incel essentially.
Yeah.
But like as an antagonist, he's interesting. There's not
Hmm.
many antagonists out there who are in D&D at least I think that are interesting.
Hmm.
His because he has this whole like thing. He can never die. If you destroy him, he eventually the dark powers eventually bring him back at the end of the adventure. So you never actually win, which is
Hmm.
interesting. And it's just yeah, vampires are cool. I love playing vampires, especially the vampires I played in Beneath the Tide. They were cool, but man, I wish they lasted longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
The patriarch of that clan, was trying to get away, but
Hmm.
he did not.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I think there's the amount of week I love because I love that sense of like preparation, knowing what it is helping. Where it's like some things where it's like if you're fighting a troll, it's like that's a troll. It's big, it's dumb, it hits hard, it has a lot of hit points. It regenerates. Like you need actually troll is a troll is an example. You need fire and acid. Like
Yeah,
that it really helps. An ogre, on the other hand,
they're just.
it, yep, or an Etten or something like that.
Ettins,
Where it's like
Ettins are fun.
hill giant, like
Oh,
all these
I
things where
love
it's
running
like
giants.
yeah, but still like when it comes to running the combat, it's like when you're thinking about for your players, it's like a player who has no idea what it is versus a player who knows everything there is to know about them. There's gonna be very little difference that in those two
Yeah,
fights because there's nothing to know about them.
that's why I think one of my favorite things to do, especially if you're playing with a group of people who they know the monster manual,
Hmm.
they know the monsters. My favorite thing to do is so, oh, you know the monster? And they go in. They might meta a little bit when they're fighting the monster, because, I mean, they're gonna. Who cares? Like,
Hmm.
it's gonna happen at some point. It's always fun to modify monsters in a way they don't expect. So it's like, wait,
Hmm.
that thing, they're normally immune to this damage, or they're usually not immune to this damage. It's like, oh, that's weird.
Hmm.
I love modifying monsters,
Yeah.
especially like making monsters who aren't undead. Maybe giving monsters a little bit of extra protection, that like spells that are protecting them, armor,
Hmm.
because it makes things more interesting. But what's your favorite monster to run, Sam? Vampires, ballets, liches of varying design, apparently.
I haven't run a lich in a while. It's been a while since I've had a lich. I only did one for like a final boss, my post-apocalyptic campaign.
Ooh,
That was fun. I also did that one I was proud of because that final boss fight was it was a lich, but then it was also I had it bring back every boss fight they had
oh,
fought throughout the campaign
that's
in a
real
row, like
cool.
in order.
That's real cool.
Yeah, so it
Very,
was like
very like Godzilla, destroy all monsters, like that really silly Godzilla movie where they bring back
mhm,
all of Godzilla's nemesises and he has to fight all of them at like
yep,
once. Oh, watch that
yeah. It
movie
was
if you
like
haven't. It's so good.
yeah, I brought them back in a row, and it was funny because it was all of them. So it was like their first boss fight from like level 2 or something. It's like they're like level 17, I think, at this point. So it was
No,
like went down in one hit, but then like gradually just keep on coming, and like eventually they start to pile up, and like you need to take care of them. And the lich is still over there. I
that's
think
fun.
I think they gave the lich something where he could heal himself too. Like it took time, so like he could like occupy the party with the previous boss fight, so he could go and
Oh,
heal himself.
that's so good.
I love.
Um,
Yeah, one of my favorite lasting enemies I ran was back when I was back in college. I so there was back in college. There's a creature in the Pathfinder monster manual called a bone storm, or maybe it was maybe it was a bone tornado. Either way, basically it was an undead tornado that was just like a giant funnel cloud and just filled with bones, and like it was like red and filled with necromantic energy. And it was like I think it was only something like 30 feet tall. Like it was a gargantuan creature or something, but it was like
Lord
not that
Bonestorm.
big. Yeah, but I was like, what if there was an ancient vampire that could turn into one of those as his form, but it was also like the
Oh,
size of a hurricane.
that's so cool.
Yeah, so it was like he could turn into its giant bone tornado and just like sweep across the
I love
countryside.
it. Oh, that reminds me so much of Gravelord Nito from Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, giving creature like taking two creatures and just like splicing them together and just being like, what it can turn from this into this is a it was a fun it was a fun thing to do. They have like the same creature type. It's like yeah, a vampire that can turn into this.
That's so cool. Um, for me, I think I've noticed I have a trend of running certain monsters a lot, and it's again ones that drain ability scores.
Hmm.
But that's just because it's fun to drain people's ability scores.
Hmm.
Um, and especially like monsters that don't have to like chip away hit points to kill somebody.
Hmm.
But I mean, there's a reason the channel is called Mimics and Monstrosities.
Yeah.
I love running mimics, and you can make a mimic be anything, which
Hmm.
is a lot of fun. Like in Death House, like the precursor venture to Curse of Strahd, there's a door that's a mimic,
Hmm.
and like a chest. If you're like, oh, okay, a chest could be a mimic, I'll avoid it. A door, you might need to open the door to continue on.
Hmm.
So mimic ladders are good too. I've done mimic ladders before. Mimic, yeah, like anything. Mimic bed. If you guys went into the one place in the tower, the gray skies, that was just the astral sea.
Mm.
Uh, and there was a floating house on a rock, and the entire house was a mimic.
Oh no.
So anybody that went inside the house would have been swallowed, but affected by its adhesive trait. So
Oh
swallow
gross.
and adhes, and that counter would have been like anyone who's inside the thing, you know, it's that encounter I wanted to run so bad, but I never got to, so I might recycle it
Hmm.
somewhere else. Um,
It's my favorite thing to do. If something doesn't come up, just like move it over somewhere else.
yeah. Um, there is also an astral dreadnought in that
Oh
place.
boy.
So if you guys, so I've been having a lot of fun using this random encounter table too. When people are exploring places, I've borrowed it from Critical Role because they're using it lately, and every couple of hours while the characters are exploring, just have them roll on the table themselves,
Hmm.
and that's you can have monsters come up that way. So it's not it doesn't just feel like you're doing, you know, walking without anything happening. So it's cool to
Right.
get like the players involved in on it. And one of those encounters could have been an astral dreadnought. And
Hmm.
the cool thing with the astral sea is the way you move in it is you have to think about it.
Hmm.
So you don't just walk. You fly. You can fly as your speed is based on your intelligence score. So I was like, because I don't do grids because I don't really like running grids unless it's like a huge
Hmm.
kind of complicated battle map. So like I was like looking at everyone's intelligence scores in the Beneath the Tide party, and like Ogden's movement speed would have been so much better than everybody else's. But also like fighting an astral dreadnought would have been so bull. Because like if it swallows people, they're in a different plane of existence, like a
Oh,
demi
no.
plane, like a
Yeah.
donjon. So if like it swallows somebody and they're like making death saves, they're just in another plane of existence. It's
Hmm.
brutal. But yeah, no, favorite monsters mimics because they can be anything, which is great. Because why not? Yeah, why not make just anything a mimic? It's fun.
Hmm.
That's why
Yeah.
Obluxes are fun too, because Obluxes can disguise themselves as people.
Yeah.
Favorite, but like totally though, favorite monster, Illithid, Mind Flayers.
Oh, those are good.
Uh, I still really want to run a Tarask because I've modified the 5e Tarask to be more like the 3.5 Tarask.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I just remembered. That reminds me. Speaking of Tarasques, we have one of those.
Yeah, you do.
That's
He might be showing up if someone figures out a way to get him in there. Uh,
that's right. That's right. Because we made an arrangement with him. Yeah, because we left him there, and we were just like,
he'll be there when.
he'll be there whenever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like we like let him go, but we're just like go back to sleep until such a time as you're needed.
it's gonna be gross to have a Tarask in that fight.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, no, Mind Flayers, Mimics, Shadows. Those are like usually my go-to stuff. Kate has a question.
Hey, Kate.
What is your favorite first encounter for a low-level party?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Low level parties are so hard to prep
Not
for.
Sahuagin.
Yeah.
Learn that lesson for Beneath the Tide.
Yeah.
Shadows you can do at low level, but it's real dicey.
Hmm.
You'll see one in next campaign that I'm really excited about that I designed for our first session that I'm
Oh,
real
nice.
excited about. Um, Imps.
See, the thing with first level parties or like low level parties is that it's so hard to prep for them because like anything can kill them. It's like a single crit takes someone down from full health to
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
So like I really like to lean into I really like to lean into just how fragile they are and just kind of make everything feel dire and like just kind of lean into that sense, like not have it feel like, oh, this is just another routine fight against some low level enemies. It's just like, oh no, you're being chased by wolves.
That's always a good one.
Those could kill you. Like
Yeah.
that's not like I remember I had like the last campaign I ran at home. First encounter I did was uh they were just like exploring around an outdoor area and they like came across a wild boar, and it was like a tough fight, but they killed it. And it was also really funny because like I was committed at that point in the campaign because like I like at the beginning of campaigns I like doing like paying attention to all the like nitty gritty rules like carrying capacity
Mm-hmm.
and like making sure you have enough food to eat, and then just like easing up off of them as the campaign goes
Yeah.
on. But it's like low level, and it was really funny because they had the Oregon Trail moment where they're like they
Yes.
need food and they killed the boar, but then they checked their carrying capacities and they could not carry
That's
all the
amazing.
boar meat, and then they got attacked by wolves because they were carrying an overabundance of raw
Oh,
boar
that's
meat.
so good.
It was just like you could just like lean into how ridiculous you can get with just
That's real good.
very simple encounters if you just like
Yep.
actually acknowledge just how terrifying it is for a first level
That's
character.
why I'm so excited for what I'm doing with the next campaign because because it's a not only Beneath the Tide, y'all are going to be on a continent that isn't split up like an
Hmm.
archipelago. It's going to be very much just a big landmass, and you guys will have to take weeks to trek across it to get to places.
Hmm.
And I'm going to play survival mechanics. It's like, yeah, you might need to hunt for food for a bit. You might need to like gather resources to survive out in the wild, and I'm so excited to run like encounters like that.
Hmm.
But I'm partial to like bandits on the road for a low level party because you can have
That's
so much
always
fun
good
with
too.
bandits.
Hmm.
We did one for the Wildmount campaign that I had so much fun doing. Yeah, bandits are a lot of fun, and even weather. Like you could do really fun weather
Hmm.
encounters for a low level party. Like maybe there's a tornado,
Yeah,
and they have to like run and get cover in the wilderness. But wolves are great. Like you mentioned, there's a really good wolf encounter in Curse of Strahd for a low level party. That's a lot of fun. Um, and sometimes it can be fun to throw a beefy monster at a low level party and see how they handle it. Do they kill it or do they? Because chase encounters can be a lot of fun too. I think when
that's true.
they have to run away from an encounter. Like there's no way they're gonna
Mhm.
fight it, and they have to like run.
Yep. You have to, it's the thing is with D&D players though. I feel like they're so used people who play D&D are so used to just fighting everything.
Hmm.
So like you really need to make sure it's like you're a level 1 party and this is a dragon. Like
That's yeah, stuff like that's like a given. Like yeah, we can't fight a dragon at level one.
yes. It's like you need it's like if you but like there's some things where it's like you're a level 3 party and it's a frost giant. You're just like maybe we can fight a frost giant. I don't know. I like that one's a little more iffy. So like we're gonna try it, and then it's like and then they all die. It's like you were supposed to run from that.
Yeah. So I like designing encounters like that. I like making sure my world feels like it's a world and not. I use a term. I don't want it to feel like a video game where it scales up with the party
Hmm.
because that's not fun for me.
Yeah,
Um, what's the best way to make sure everyone at the table is having fun? Session zeros are a really good idea
that's true.
because you can kind of gauge what everyone wants to do, what everyone's expecting, safety mechanics and stuff like that. Um, I like to check in every so often just to see if everyone's having
Hmm.
fun. I can do that on the breaks and everything. Um, and making sure everyone kind of gets to share the spotlight too.
Hmm.
It really sucks if one player takes all the glory, which can be
Hmm.
hard for some tables because there's some tables like I where maybe people aren't as kind of comfortable with like role play and stuff and getting into it, and
Hmm.
there's the one player that kind of is like trying to like get them into it, so they kind of take the spotlight a bit. Um, but yeah, just making sure everyone kind of has something to do, I think, which is really important, especially like asking players what they want to do. I think I've never done that before. I'm going to do that for next campaign and all my future campaigns that I run. I'm going to kind of gauge an idea of what they want to do when they're
Hmm.
taking part in the campaign. That way, there's something that is catered to them, and yeah, just making sure. I think for me at least, uh, no one is left out. Everyone
Yeah,
kind of has their own little thing to do. Everything is fair.
yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's like everything you said. I also really like I really like planning like kind of planning individual stories
Mm-hmm.
for each player
For
like
sure.
especially based on like if they give me a lot of good stuff in their backstory to work
Unlike
with.
me.
I
But it's
worked with it.
yeah, and it's been great.
Yeah, you get there eventually. It's like there and it's I think it's also interesting because there's sometimes like some characters come into a campaign like with a story kind of already built in with them, and it's like
Yeah.
you kind of know you have your thing, you need to resolve it. And then there's also characters who it's like they come in, they don't necessarily have a story yet, and they're just like, I'm open to exploring
Oh
and
yeah.
finding a story and like latching on to something. And I think it's like the first ones are I think for me, way easier to work with at the very beginning because it's like, yeah, you just like, you gave me characters, you gave me motivations, you have an enemy already. I didn't even, like, now I just need to just take these things you gave me and just use them. And then for the other players, it's like, I think the session zero idea of asking like what kind of stuff are you interested in is would be really helpful because it's like you start throwing out hooks for that person to see like stuff they'll get interested in, but
Mm-hmm.
like you have to wait for them to latch on to something for them to bite for them to
Yeah.
then like, oh, okay, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just having just and trying to plan like at least every couple sessions being like, okay, this person hasn't gotten stuff that's has to do with their stuff for a
Yeah.
while, so like let's do something for them.
Mm-hmm.
Try to keep that like a pretty consistent rotation or
Yeah.
like multiple people at once too.
Yeah. Make sure. Yeah. Make sure. I think making sure everyone has something to do is really important because the sessions where you're just kind of sitting around and not getting to do anything sucks.
Hmm.
But for me, like I have a really terrible attention span, so I think it's why I'm much better suited at DMing than I am being a player. But I've
Hmm.
noticed like when I'm a player and I haven't done anything for maybe a good half hour, I'm totally fine. 'Cause I just zone out and kind of I try my best to pay attention
Hmm.
to the others because I mean it's important. But man, my attention span is so bad. Um, but yeah, like yeah, session zeros are great, just to make sure everyone is on the same page, which is also very important. You don't want people you don't want people having like clashing expectations, especially, and you don't want people thinking the game is going to be something it isn't. Like some people might
Hmm.
have more fun with dungeon crawls, like just
Yep.
killing stuff, whereas other people like me, I love narrative-driven tabletop games. And at the start, I used to love throwing combat encounters in, but I mean, the narrative stuff is fun, and it's fun for the players. I think, I hope.
Hmm.
Um, but also, like the dungeon master needs to have fun too from time to time.
Hmm.
So getting those meaty, getting combat encounters, and also, I don't know about you, Sam, but I really like at the start. My fun was, haha, you're dead. And now it's been more like, there's far more fun concepts or consequences to throw in that isn't death, and
Hmm.
I've been having fun with that. But yeah, share the spotlight is a key one. I
Yeah.
think that's major for just to make sure everybody has fun, because if someone's hogging the spotlight or interrupting people when they're having their own scenes, it can really drain the fun real
Hmm.
quick. Um, what's your favorite NPC you've ever created? That's a question from chat.
Okay. Um. Ooh, favorite NPC
Barbus,
ever.
Barbus, and Barbus.
I mean, I do like Barbus, Barbus, and Barbus. They are
They're
fun.
great.
I also like. I'm also a fan of Mirth.
Mirth is great.
Yeah. Trying to think if I have a favorite other than those ones. Other than Mirth, though. I really like Mirth.
Barbus, Barbus, and Barbus.
Right? They're great.
Grantar.
They're I do like Grantar. I'm excited for him to for like be able to get to a
You,
point where
you,
like he's back involved
you
and
gotta
stuff.
love you gotta love a villain, like
Yep.
because they're the most fun to play.
Hmm.
I think.
I think they're and villains are the ones that most villains are the ones that most like feel like the one that the DM is playing as almost in a sense because like you do there is an adversarial sense like you need to be a good adversary a good villain for the
Yeah.
players and like in that sense you're kind of in conflict it's this weird thing where you are in like you're playing a character who's in conflict with them but you're not actually in conflict you want the players to succeed and win
Hmm.
but you also have to give them
But
a
you
good
also
challenge.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're this weird like yeah, you have to kind of play both sides a little bit. And a villain kind of lets you just like play one side a little bit more and
Oh
just
yeah.
like because and it's also fun because like the whole point of a villain is like the more the characters hate them, the more the better that means you're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Yup.
you just like play a jerk.
Yeah, because I think for the games I've DM'd so far, the major villains I've played weren't of my creation. So Asmodeus, a
Yeah.
beholder.
Hmm.
Uh, we can also make weird, fun beholders, but
Hmm.
even like my most favorite villain I've currently been playing is in a Wild Mount campaign, but he's from the rulebook, so I didn't make him either. But
Hmm.
for like NPCs in general, Sigmund from Beneath the Tide is
Sigmund.
great.
Sigmund's fun.
Just this clothing tailor who's actually a silver dragon.
Hmm.
Um, Roman was a lot of fun because he was this kind of troubled, not villain but not a hero either, very much in between,
Hmm.
um, mind controlled and stuff. Velocash the Rakshasa was
Oh yeah, he was good.
so fun because it's just a relentless villain who they're not destroyed the nine hells. They're gonna keep coming back for revenge. So he was fun.
Hmm.
Um, in my home game, I had an NPC called Sylvan Swift Spear, and he was the avatar form of one of the gods in my pantheon. He just hung out, very much like very Tom Bombadil esque.
Oh nice.
He just like hung out in the material plane just for shits and giggles, and he'd always show up for some reason playing a lute. So the players would like every time they'd see somebody playing a lute, they'd be like, "Is that him?" And it very much became like a. So he was a lot of fun to play. Um, Sigmund is like near the top though. Dustin's been great,
Oh yeah.
um, especially last week. That was great.
Hmm.
Monkfish, the Tabaxi, who's
Monkfish
just
was
a
fun.
stoner.
Yeah.
I have a lot. I don't think I have a favorite. Sigmund might maybe, and I know
Hmm.
some DMs do like a self-insert NPC, um, which some do. I don't think I do. I don't think I have really. But Sigmund probably is my favorite.
What about Chris Kirkins?
Chris Perkins was dumb. It was so dumb. I don't know why I did that.
I'll be honest because I think it was like session two. That
It
might
was
have been the
session.
end of session
It
one.
was the end of session one. Yeah.
I remember session one went for a while. Like we went for a while in the first session.
Yeah.
That
City
one.
Below.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When we got to Chris Kirkins, I was just like, what did I get myself into?
Great.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
that
No,
was rough.
it was. He ended up becoming endearing.
Oh man, so dumb. Um, yeah. Bjorksnass is
Bjork's knife.
there's nothing about Bjorksnass. It's just the name. We went through an IKEA catalog to name the
Yeah,
Kuatoa. Um,
that was probably one of my favorite ways of naming something. Just named all the Kuoto after IKEA furniture.
so yeah, Bjorksnass doesn't really do anything, so I can't say he's a favorite because all he does is just nothing, and now he only knows one word, which is fuck.
That's I mean,
So
honestly my favorite character development we've had.
so he's fun. Oh, Ogden's mom, Marion, has been great
Oh,
to play.
hmm
She's been fun. His dad, Latimer, I like playing like a neglectful parent that isn't terrible.
mm,
They just yeah, like a complicated parent. I'm very
hmm
much taking up like um, inspiration from like how my father is. He's very kind of meh about my interests and stuff. So I've been trying to play with that a little bit, but also play up like, hey, what if my dad actually like apologized to me? Would that be cool, right?
hmm
So maybe it's a little bit of me like wish fulfillment on my part, but I like Latimer.
hmm
Uh,
it was mind blowing for me when you said that Ogden's parents were just the parents from the Mummy.
Essentially,
Yeah, I was like, oh, I can see it now. That makes
yeah,
so much more sense.
yeah. Um,
And they
Sigmund
gave
has to
birth
be
to
number
Jeff
one.
Goldblum.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sigmund, I think for me, Sigmund
Hmm
or I didn't get to play Kendar enough. Kendar was really interesting. I have a whole bunch of like history on that lich that you guys killed.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Sigmund. That's my choice.
nice.
What's your favorite twist a campaign has taken, DM or player led? What do you think makes a good twist?
Ooh, twists are always, and I love player led twists. I love players surprising me. Is my biggest thing.
I used to not.
Like,
I used to be really
oh yeah,
like I used to be like the adversarial DM when I first started.
mm,
Yeah, I used to be like, no, no, this is my story. Yeah,
yeah,
real bad. Now like it's way more fun to
hmm
just not be that kind of dungeon master.
yep. Because it's like because I think the thing with that is that it's like it makes it for me it makes it easier to play when the players are surprising me because like when you're I it's also I've DM'd for a very long time now so it's like when you do kind of like just have it be your story that you're running
Yeah.
and you don't like allow it to deviate very much it eventually just you kind of start running out of ideas where it's like
Yep.
it's just you in a vacuum just kind of like putting the tracks ahead of you but like the player when the players are like surprising you and make and like
hmm
you know have a hand on the wheel it's like there's something to play off of there it's not just you it's like you can be reactive with it and there's this extra force in there
hmm
forcing you to make interesting decisions. I think that's one of my favorite things to happen is just when I'm like oh I did not think about that I have to now figure out what to do with that but and I think for me I feel like I do like I come up with my favorite ideas when I'm working around something
Yeah.
when it's like I have this limitation or something unexpected happen I have to make something fit it's like in order to get from point A to point B but like there's a big old barrier in the middle so I have to take this weird interesting roundabout path to get there.
Um, but what's your favorite twist a campaign has taken?
Oh okay let me think um I mean I'm a fan of I love creating twists like I love making stuff where there is a twist there's a
Oh yeah.
surprise I'm like Hannibal's heritage
Yeah.
like everything to do with Drew's mom like there's just mysteries where you don't have the answers and you get surprising little pieces of information I love doing that um those whole getting to be the DM and sitting on a piece of information forever, and then just being able to be like, and it was this one the whole time, and see the players like, what? So I think, uh, yeah, anything that forces me to have to work or kind of work around it. I do remember there was one. I will say there was one in one of my home games that legitimately, it was an action I did not foresee, and I literally had to go lay down for 20 minutes and figure out what happened. Like stopped the session and went and laid down because I was like, I need to figure out what happens after that because I am stumped at the moment.
Was this the hands or the head in the forge thing you told me about?
No, that one I figured out pretty quickly. This one
Okay.
was the player with the axe that could eat pieces of monsters
That's
and then make
right.
them into part of it.
Yeah, yeah, you told me this one.
Yeah, and she was fighting a cleric of Nerul who had a gauntlet that basically like any like hafted weapon he carried like got like an energy like a necrotic scythe blade
That's cool.
come out of it, and he could like it was a god artifact basically, and she was like, I want my axe to eat it, and I was like, what happens when this magic axe eats the artifact of a god? And I like had to sit down and lay down for a while and like just really think, because it's one of those things, where you like, it's not necessarily I don't have ideas for what happens, but it's like I need to be careful about this to make sure that the thing I pick is good,
Yeah.
because this is you just made a significant decision, and I want to make sure I think about my response to this before I say it, so I don't like regret it later.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 'cause it could be too good for you. It could be I could just shut something down. Like, I want to make sure it's a nice middle road.
I think
What about you?
for player led was definitely when you all were at the Bellwood Manor, and Brittany, who plays Leah, likes to touch things,
Uh-huh.
and I've designed things around that because that's what she likes to do. That's her and idea of fun is to just mess with shit, which I appreciate as a DM. But
Mm-hmm.
when she released Asmodeus without questioning,
Mm-hmm.
this infernal box that was speaking to her, which is great. That culminated everything. But when you guys were at the Bellwyn Manor and Ash struck up a deal with Asmodeus,
Mm.
and it's kind of all sort of led to what's happening right now, which is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that one easily. And then as a player, the Hannibal stuff from last week was great.
Mm.
Even though I was like, yeah, he's definitely that, right? He's a prince. He's a prince. He's a prince. And then to
Funny, I was like, oh, actually though.
oh shit, that was great. Um, I'm also just a fan of a totally like cliched twist too. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this one's ally is an enemy. Oh no, those are fun.
Yep.
I still love that
Yep.
shit. I like doing that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um, I've learned a bad twist is to, well, maybe not a bad twist, but one that's kind of boring, is to, especially early on in a campaign, is to kill off a character's family.
That's a classic one.
So I'm pretty excited to like dive into this new campaign with everybody on Wednesday nights and just kind of take all I've learned from running Beneath the Tide and just start a new campaign from the start with all this information because it's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes a good twist? Some that are, I think, the best twists are the ones nobody sees coming, and everyone's just kind of like they talk about it. They're like, everyone's like caught off guard by it. And everyone's kind of just like thinking about like the implication of what that means for like the story in general. Those are great.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I think also at the same time it's important to like have the clue. It's the balancing act. Like, you need to have
yeah,
the clues and the foreshadowing there. So like it doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere. It's like you say one thing and all of a sudden a bunch of pieces click into place. And then like it's like you like trip the mousetrap, and then like the players then just like piece everything together
mm,
themselves, and like the twist has happened, but like you've laid all the groundwork.
yeah,
It's not just like one of those things where it's like, and then that mouse you've been carrying with you has been the king this whole time. It's like, well, that just actually doesn't make sense for a lot of things that have happened.
yeah, um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but those moments where it's just like, oh, that's like when you have just like, I think it's like when there's been a mystery kind of surrounding it, where it's like something like you know something's up. You know that like there's like a blank spot,
Yeah.
but then like what ends up filling that spot is like just incredibly surprising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I I'm just excited to run a campaign that isn't twist after twist like Beneath the Tide has been for the last couple sessions. It's been oh yeah, well yeah. Um yeah. Good questions, chat.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you, what is because you mentioned that you've mentioned a couple times like you're excited to like take the lessons you've learned from running
Yeah.
City Below and Beneath the Tide into your next campaign. Like, what
City
are
Below was so bad.
there's always a learning curve,
Oh
but
man.
what are some of the like what are some of the things that you're like front of your mind like that you're just like going into this one? This is a main thing that I am like. This is a main lesson that I am bringing into this one.
Uh Honestly, don't go in with the story in mind.
Mm,
So very much like let the players create their story because their story essentially it's not the DM story, which is what Beneath the Tide was from the get go. Because like, ooh, this is like a pirates, krakens, like oh here we go.
mm-hmm,
Um, and also like Beneath the Tide felt very constrained on the kind of story I could tell. Everyone could tell anyway.
mm-hmm,
But with this one, I like the idea of yeah, I do have a little bit of a story that kind of sets everything in motion at the beginning, but from after that point, it's the player's story, and they basically choose what happens. Basically, instead of me having a villain who's going to be present, based on the character's actions, they're going to be making their own villains, their own enemies that are, you know, beholden to them. But also, like, yeah, not every campaign has to be a world-ending scenario.
mm-hmm.
Uh, because like, if you're getting to the point where the campaign is like leading into a world-ending scenario, where are all these other heroes that could easily deal with this?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a thing that I'm kind of excited to not do. Next time, I'm like, I might, like, yeah, there'll be encounters where like, oh shit, like this arc could have major implications for the world. Like the players uncover something that could be like a
Mm-hmm.
major implication of things to come. But I probably will never ever do. Well, don't say never ever, but I probably would never do an yeah, I wouldn't set up the BBEG like so early, like I did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also like let players kind of be more open with things and don't be so restrictive on stuff because some of like the think the most fun stuff comes out of D&D and tabletop games in general is when like the players think of things outside the box, and it
Mm-hmm.
sucks to be like nah that doesn't make sense nah, but
Yeah.
and be open to it, um, which has been a lot of fun. Um, don't throw all their backstory stuff at them in like the first 6 sessions.
that's
Kind
that's tempting.
of space it out a bit because if
Mm-hmm.
you space it out a bit, you can maybe can let it marinate a bit and have more fun with it. Um, and also, if someone still has their backstory stuff tied into the campaign, they might still be more. They might still. There's a chance they're still going to be into playing that character. Otherwise, they might be into getting their character possessed and disappear for a bit. Um, so like just like yeah, taking like that kind of stuff into it. Also like when I yeah, like I said when I first started the channel, first started Beneath the Tide, especially or like City Below and Beneath the Tide, I'd like to design deadly encounters. All of the encounters were deadly
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, well, challenges are fun, aren't they? But it's fun to also just have an encounter where the party steamrolls it, and they come to an encounter where they don't steamroll it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also more fun to kind of build up to those encounters with little small encounters, and they waste the resources a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, more streamlining thing. Well, not streamlining things, but making them more spread out. Um, yeah, and not killing characters. There's a character death is a possibility, and I think in some circumstances it needs to be the consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you keep like if characters keep dying, you keep bringing them back to life, just to keep things going, it kind of, for me at least, takes away the sort of sort I'm looking for here. I don't know, but like I've done a lot lately because of my deadly encounters at first, like the first couple levels. I've had
Hmm.
characters die, and then I've had like divine intervention that doesn't make any sense at that low level to bring somebody
Right.
back. So I think going forward, if a death happens, just let it stick.
Mm.
If there's no way, like realistically, there's no way the character can come back, they're not going to come back because yeah. And I think that's
Hmm.
yeah, that's gonna play into like me just developing deadly encounters, like the Sahawagan encounter beneath the tide
Hmm.
in session 3 was a deadly encounter,
Hmm.
and the character died. But I think me learning how to balance more, because I feel like I've gotten better at balancing encounters.
Hmm.
Um, I think that lesson is what I'm most excited about to bring into this next campaign,
Hmm.
because I don't want to kill my characters off, uh, my player characters off like in the third session.
Hmm.
But if their choices lead to them dying, then I might let that consequence stick a bit.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, there's going to be situations where you're not going to be able to bring somebody back to life. And I've noticed in some of my games, I've done this where if there's a temple, you can go to the temple and resurrect a character.
Hmm.
But I'm kind of against that idea now that the more I think about it, because, again, they could just be as reckless as they want, but there's always going to be that safety net there.
Hmm.
And I kind of like the idea that like what we've talked about for next campaign, especially for your character, which I'm not going to talk about, but he knows very much the working goings on of how temples work, and especially because this next campaign setting, the continent only has one major temple where people can get resurrected, and that's at the capital, and it costs
Hmm.
actual gold to do so, and it's far
Hmm.
away. So yeah, maybe like lessons like that, like balance lessons, so people don't just like die in the third session. Collaborative storytelling lessons, which are going to be really nice. Um, I can, the list is endless. Um,
Hmm.
there's just so many. Um, yeah,
Character death is such a polarizing thing
yeah.
in tabletop gaming. I feel
I think
like
sometimes it can make like a good narrative thing,
hmm
but in terms of consequences, there are more interesting ones.
hmm I'm a much bigger fan. I love as a like one of my favorite things to do is like if a character has died, like bring the character back, but have the consequence or the cost of them coming back being an NPC dies, like one the players care about.
That's I have one of those on my resurrection table.
Oh yeah.
I don't really run the resurrection table anymore because it's kind of
Hmm.
broken in aspects. But yeah,
Right.
like
Yeah, I had
a soul has to be a soul for a soul.
hmm I had one where I mean I just had one where it was like a character died, and it was like they went off. It was basically it was an underground cavern where it was like one side was just open into a just massive underground canyon
Uh oh.
in like the encounter they were having, and they were fighting air elementals. Air
Ooh.
elementals
Oh.
can tornado and
Can
throw
fling
people in a
people.
random
Yeah.
direction. Just flung someone off that just into the cavern and they died. Um, and so what happened was the party went and like they basically it was like into an underground canyon. They found her like miles away where like because there was like it was it was water at the bottom, but they found her like miles where the
Oh.
water spilled out above
Oh.
ground.
That's
But like
rough.
while they were doing that, one of their NPCs who was a friend like went off and tried to like go fight their major enemy alone.
Oh.
Like
Yeah.
was like got impatient when trying and died in the process. And it was basically like it wasn't a direct like
Yeah.
soul for a soul, but it was like because like it was kind of like yeah you come back, but narratively now like yeah you're down in NPCs. Like there can still be that sense of like consequences and death, but like everyone can be here for it.
Yeah. That's really cool.
'Cause- yeah, because to me, player death is, at least to me in my mind, when a player dies or a player character dies, it's the one who died really experiences the consequences the least because they
Yeah.
just get to make a fresh new character and just like come in like everything's fine and everyone else is still like mourning this person they never met and they're
Mm-hmm.
just like I'm here and having a great grand old time. Sorry you're all sad about your dead friend.
I like, yeah. I like how I don't know if you've been caught up on Critical Role, but I like how they've been doing it because one of their characters died near the start of this
Oh yeah, I
current
know. Yes,
campaign,
I know that one.
like
Yeah.
episode 25. Yeah, and
Mhm.
the player's Talison's new character has been kind of was there at the funeral kind of thing, like
Mhm.
giving last rites and stuff, which is really cool. But also like Matt Mercer is a very things he thinks of. Brought the
Mhm.
dead character back as a technically an antagonist,
Mhm. Yeah, I've seen been
and
seeing stuff with that.
it's been really cool how he's been doing that. One of my favorite things to do if a character dies, especially if it's like late campaign stuff where you don't want to introduce a new character because it kind of the new character would be there for like what 2 sessions and then they're done.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
familiar.
yeah, friends.
Mhm.
Is bring them back as a revenant.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
they're back to complete this goal, this job, the mission they're on with their friends, and then once that job is done, they pass over, and that's kind of fun. Uh, but I do think at some points death needs to stick a little.
Mhm.
Just to like reiterate that, you know, you can't go out and just be super reckless, or you can't go out and like do all this evil shit and not expect
Mhm.
consequences.
Yep.
But also like I've really liked also like if someone does die, I've enjoyed using the mechanics that I stole from Matt Mercer again, the resurrection rules, because those have been at least for me, I think they're interesting because
Mhm.
once you get to a certain point in D&D, resurrection is just like characters will never die. They'll never
Yeah.
really get to that point. But I think the
There are
resurrection,
some effects that will permanently kill them, but yeah,
yeah.
aside from those, yeah.
But it's I think I really like the resurrection mechanic stuff because it doesn't make death just a outcome or doesn't make it like a no here we are character's dead so sad.
Mhm.
I like introducing the resurrection mechanics because instead of having just like I touch the character and they're back to life, the characters like have to compel the spirit to return to the body and have like a
Mhm.
little like ritual and it's mostly narrative and role play centric, and that's always been really fun and fascinating to me, and I really like that concept, so that's why I stole it and why I use it in my games. But also like I don't know, that's how I feel. I think it's fun.
Mhm. Yeah. And like I liked how things went with like the fight with Hannibal, Sid, and the Inquisitor too, where
Oh yeah.
it was like ultimately it was Hannibal's choice about like whether it was like the Inquisitor, because the Inquisitor doesn't want to kill all of you. Inquisitor just wants to get away. So the Inquisitor's like eventually gets Sid down. Is like, okay, here's your choice. Your friend, sibling, whatever can live, but I'm gonna get away, or you can try and keep fighting
Oh,
and
that could have been so bad.
risk it. Yeah,
I
and it's
think
like
yeah.
making it like giving that like I like giving that choice of it. Just like you can risk it, or you can you can fail at the task you're attempting but keep a person alive, or you can uh like or you can risk it and try and keep succeeding.
Yeah. I think if that was Hannibal from the start of the campaign, he totally would have just kept fighting,
Yeah, that's growth though.
and that would have been bad.
Hmm.
And I like stuff like that too. Like that stuff is cool. Um, yeah, consequences are just fun. I feel like you need
Yep.
consequences in this kind of like storytelling format because if you don't have consequences, then what's the point?
Hmm.
Because everything is just in your favor. It makes for a boring story.
Yep.
Just like narrative formats in general. If there's no conflict, then it's kind of boring.
Yep, you got to have the risk.
Which
I
is
think
oh, go
I
ahead.
think it is important. I think it's important to balance the risk too. Just like have like because I think on the same token, it can be also boring if it's like every risk
Mm,
is like life or death too. Like so, I think it's like yeah, the variety of risks is important. So like some things, it's like yeah, there's a consequence here, but it's not like life or death. It's like you fail at this thing you were trying to do, and like
yeah,
the villain gets away, and you have to deal with them again, or like this thing you were trying to get doesn't you lose it. You're not going to get it now.
you tried
Like
stealing from a shop or something and you get caught and you get imprisoned for a bit.
mm-hmm. Now you either need to wait out your sentence, or
Break
the
you
party
out.
needs to do a jailbreak. Or even better, the you could even do something where then it's like the authorities, the crown now realizes they have a very effective, capable person in their prison system who's
Ooh,
sentenced to something, a long sentence. They offer you a chance for freedom, but in exchange you have to do something for them.
that's cool.
Yeah, then you can get this. You get spells like geese, and or
Geese is
like
geese is
hmm something like that, where it's just like, here you go. We're keeping tabs on you. We're not just gonna let you go free, but like if you do what we ask you to, then like I think that I like stuff like that too, where it's like you end up having to. It's kind of like, because whenever you do, generally when you do things, whenever players do something in a campaign, they're doing it for a reason, and like they're doing it for some kind of benefit.
mm-hmm.
And I think that like stuff like that, where a consequences basically puts them into debt
Yeah.
for adventure benefits, and it's like
Oh
you just have to
yeah.
go do an adventure. You have to go on an adventure and do a thing, but you're not going to get anything out of it. It's going to make up
Ooh,
for a
yeah,
consequence. It's
that's
like
fun.
you just have to go work it off, basically.
Yeah, I like stuff like that. I used to be like I said, I used to be very much into the best consequence is death.
Right.
But now it's very much like you guys went hunting for very evil artifacts and didn't really question it. You were like, yeah, let's get
hmm
power. And the consequences
I
for those biting everybody in the ass has been great, and I can't wait to see all
mhm,
of it culminate.
I think also like I think like your growth as a DM over Beneath the Tide worked in your advantage, because like at the beginning of the campaign it was like we were kind of like, okay, well, like there are things to question here, but like we didn't want to like throw off your rhythm or
Yeah,
anything too much, because we were just like, oh, maybe just like, yeah, maybe it was just like, maybe this is just how it's gonna go. This is the story he's got. Like, okay, let's go along with the story he's presenting to us. And like eventually you got more comfortable with us deviating and like having
yeah,
brand options, but we didn't realize that, and we were still trying to like
mm-hmm.
be like nice players and go along, which just resulted in our characters not questioning the things you gave. Like, okay, this seems a little fishy, but all right, we're gonna keep up with it. And like at the end, you're just like, why didn't you question these things? And we're just like, what? Wait,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
could have what? And like, no, I love that, because like it resulted in our characters taking really questionable decisions and ending up in kind of a messy place. And now next campaign, we're gonna be questioning everything, which
yeah.
I think is just gonna be really
I
fun.
also just have a terrible poker face too.
I
So
mean, you got us with those world breaker artifacts. You're like, this is what you need to do, and we're like, okay,
yeah, the World Breaker effects stuff was fun, and I'm
yeah,
really glad only one got powered because it would have been
yeah.
very bad if there's two powered technically now.
What's the other one?
The mantle that Ash's
Oh,
sister
that's right,
has,
that's right,
yeah,
that's right.
but
That's
that
like,
that one isn't as much of a bad thing when it's powered.
yeah, that's
Uh,
the least dangerous one, I think,
yeah,
probably.
but I'm really like thinking this can't Beneath the Tide's not going to have a really happy ending. Half the party, most of the party is going to be gone at the end, and then
Yep,
it's just going to be two people.
yep, yep.
So that's cool.
I'm a fan of campaigns that don't have a happy ending,
Me too.
especially when you're continuing in the world. Then like
Oh, totally. Yeah,
it's like, oh, yep, now we get like, let's keep going
and
on
it
this.
makes things better too because by the time your next campaign starts, especially if it's years later, where are those characters? Why aren't they here helping? And well, there's going to be a reason. If there is a threat that's big enough, that's why they're probably not around. They're gone.
hmm Yep, they're gone. They're doing other things. They're retired. They've been through enough.
They're ruling in the Nine Hells.
We'll
It's
see.
I'm really excited. Brittany has a question. What NPC did you accidentally have to create a full-fledged backstory for and character sheet because your group latched onto them way more than you thought?
Ooh, I've definitely had to do this before.
Oh,
What?
same.
Who have I? Let me think.
Not Sigmund. Sigmund, I just used the stat block for Silver
Yeah.
Dragon, and then he also has a character sheet for a level 20 wizard when he's in his wizard form.
Oh yeah.
um,
Let me see. Let me pull up my.
full-fledged backstory for an NPC.
Yeah, like the ones where it's just like, oh, this person was just a name, but I guess now guess now they're important, so sure, let's figure out what their deal is.
Malon, I think, the little kobold
Hmm.
artificer that was helping you all out
Oh
for a
yeah.
bit. He now has a backstory and a character sheet because he was only supposed to be the shipwright that y'all met for like one session,
Hmm.
but he got latched onto. So yeah, maybe him. Um, Roman, but that was based on the backstory Kate gave me.
Right.
Um, I really think only those two. I haven't.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of for
Murph.
me which ones. I don't think I've had any of this campaign actually that have been like that where they start off as just like a name drop NPC and then the party lashes onto them. Like usually I try to I tend to over prep NPCs is my biggest thing. Like I'll create like a big giant cast of people and like I'll put in their name and a little bit of backstory for them and
Yeah.
everything and like I'll figure out like what stats they'll need if I need it. And I'll just like have them sit there and I will end up using actually less than I've created. It'll be like, yeah, there's this person over here that you never interacted with, but I had them just in case.
Yeah. Um, yeah. When I like plot out my settlements, I have major NPCs who own shops, and then sometimes I might have to make up an NPC on the fly, and then I forget their name because I don't write it down.
Hmm.
Like the shopkeeper that Eclipse wants to go visit again on
Yeah, that's
Dawnbreak
right.
Cove.
Wants
Um,
wants to see if her swords are still there.
so yeah, good tip. If you make an NPC up on the fly, maybe write down their name because your players might want to revisit that person.
Yep. Just like having a place in your notes for during the session notes
Which is what
is
I have
so
now.
helpful.
Yep.
Yeah, so helpful. Just like things you did, especially because it's like players will do a thing like that's not going to come up immediately and be like in the future, and you like sometimes you'll remember that. Sometimes like so much else was happening, you completely forget, and they're like, "Hey, what happened with that thing that I did?" And you're like, "Right, that thing that you did."
And then you lie. You
Yep.
lie your way through it.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, have not had to do that with too many NPCs.
Hmm.
Sigmund was, yeah, Sigmund was already like the silver dragon that I had like in my mind palace for a while because I thought it'd be cool to have a silver dragon because silver dragons just they just watch humanity. They're curious about the mortals. They're curious about watching
Hmm.
them. So why not just have this ancient silver dragon hanging out on a cap like on a settlement, just being a tailor.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, there's a couple in my last campaign where the party went off, or uh there was like they went to this city. I was actually it was the section I was really proud of, where it's like they went to this city that has a tower in the middle of it with like this like basically a concentrated source of magic for the wizards in the city.
mhm.
Um, and like that's like where they draw their like magic ink from and everything, to, like make their spell books. But the tower is also like the tower itself was a like ancient magical construct that was connected to their like benefactor friend person who wanted to activate it and like connect it into this network of building sized magical constructs, which would like destroy the magical source within it that the wizards were using and basically like give him the center of the city. So he was kind of just like, yeah, you kind of need to just like take this city for me. But like they went in, and it was like a horribly corrupt city. So like they had to like go find like different groups to like mobilize and gain allies together to turn the city over and pretty much perform a coup. There was a lot of different criminal organizations, and they managed through a bunch of very well rolled checks to turn one criminal organization to the basis for their own religion. Uh, yeah, and like there was a couple of people that like I just like rolled randomly for names and was like they were essential commanders in the military arm of this religion they founded eventually. That just ended up being a thing for a while.
Oh man.
Yeah, like players starting a religion is frequently, in my experience, something that players will try to do. This is the first time it's really stuck.
Yeah. And I've never had players latch onto an NPC really before until Sigmund, I think. Malon, sort of, but that was more of like a one kind of character latching onto him.
Yeah.
But I think a total like party latch on wasn't until Sigmund.
Hmm.
So I can't really think of any others. Thanks for the follow, Fascinathan. Thank you.
Woo.
There's the dab gift that I use for all my alerts.
Nice.
Oops. What's your most hated monster? Like the one you just have the least interest in running.
Oh,
5e
good
Trask.
question. I've run it before. It's not too bad, but like as long as
Just
once
like
unless players bring a clay.
maybe a monster you find boring at a table. That just they're not fun.
Mm,
Like
that's a good question.
the ones that just pummel.
Yeah, yeah. There's some of the higher level ones. Let me check. Hang on. What about you? While I'm thinking about it, do you have one that you?
Let me pull up D&D Beyond and I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too. Let's
Ghosts
check
are. I
the-
like ghosts. I forgot to mention this earlier. Ghosts are fun because they can age characters to death, and
Yeah,
you
they
can't be
can.
resurrected if you get aged to death.
Hmm.
Ghosts are fun.
Oh man,
Uh,
combine ghosts with um, that ninth level spell from
ooh, Wild Mount.
Wildmount
Yeah,
that ages them until they have 30 days left to live, and then just have a ghost just touch them.
running oozes is a lot of fun. I like oozes. I like gelatinous cubes.
I should run more oozes, like especially ooblex. Those are cool.
Ooblex are great. Yeah, I actually can't think because animated objects can be a lot of fun too, especially like rugs of smothering are a lot of fun.
That's true.
Um, actually, I can't think of one.
Hmm.
Zombies are just classic. Nothing wrong
Yeah,
with a
it's like
zombie.
some of them will have their some of them will have their uh like they're kind of boring, but they have their place. They have their purpose. Like zombies are
Skeletons.
zombies. Yeah, it's like zombies and skeletons. Like yeah, these aren't supposed to be anything scheduled. Some of these are just supposed to be like boring foot soldiers, and that's okay. That's not everything needs to be interesting.
I really can't think of anything. Because
Um,
everything I've kind of like had fun with.
yeah,
Ogres are kind of just that's what they do. They just
yeah, yeah.
pummel. Bodaks are great because they can just
Oh,
look at someone and they drop to zero.
hmm,
Bone Devils are fun.
yeah.
The Frostworm is a lot of fun. If anyone has the Wildlands setting book, use the Frostworm in your campaign. There's a purple worm that can incapacitate people or stun them or whatever with it's like this trill it has, and it's a lot of fun for low wisdom
I
characters.
I would love. I'm thinking about it right now. I would love to run a. I would. I'm. I'm stuck between wanting to run a very high magic campaign and a very low magic campaign. Where like I would love to run a low magic kind of like uh occultist, like a cult
Ooh, yeah,
type of campaign where it's like magic isn't well known, and like because I feel like something like that's the kind of setting where demons and devils are really gonna shine. Because
yeah,
like in I feel like in base fifth edition, like demons are just like when there's a world filled with magical monsters, demons are just like another magical monster that's just like definitely evil and like wants your soul. It's like
yeah,
they don't really stand out, whereas like demons are like some paranormal activity demon type stuff. Like if you want that kind of thing, like you have to kind of craft the world to allow that
yeah,
space where it's like they're special. It's like, oh no, this is a demon. That is
yeah.
that is concerning.
Um, Guards,
Mm, just the guard.
just the guard.
I love I'm such a fan of the NPC section in the monster manual.
It's silly. It's
It is,
great.
but it is especially because like having run some older editions where NPCs were not you didn't have that. It was just like yeah, you just build NPCs if you want them. Like you just make a character. It was so time consuming, but just like having a section in the back of the monster manual, I cannot tell you how many times I have used the bandit stat block
Hmm.
for things. It's just so nice. They're like, yeah, it's a person. They've got a weapon. They've got a few hit points. Here's some stats. Great.
Yeah, just throw them in.
Yep.
I actually can't think of a monster that's just terrible to run. It just isn't fun. I can't think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Dumb question. It was
That's
my
fine.
question. I'm not calling anybody out.
Dude, yeah.
Um,
I do like the yeah no. I think that is one thing for demons and devils though, where it's like I think that's the closest I'll come up with is demons and devils, where it's like yeah they're just kind of summonable monsters is like the best it
they're
feels like
very, yeah, they're very campaign specific.
yeah,
I
and
feel.
like in a neutral setting I feel like they kind of come off very cartoony.
But if you want to run a demon in a campaign of any setting, Dybbuk, a Dybbuk is a very good way to go.
Mm.
It's like a jellyfish that just possesses corpses.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I can't really think. There's a creature called a. Oh, I can't think of it. It's so stupid. It's like a flesh-eating koala. Yeah, I can't think of anything that's just terrible to run. There are like monsters that are kind of cliched, I
Right.
guess, like giant spiders, but giant spiders have their place. Giant spiders are great.
Yeah.
I love running spiders because they paralyze people and they drag them off to eat them later. Like that's
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah. Oh, hydras are weird because like
Yes.
one of the things with hydras is that and like I've seen someone like write something up about hydras that I think is really interesting because hydras have the thing with the multiple heads, uh, and it's like it has the thing where it's like if you cut the whole like if you cut off their heads then like two more grow back,
Yeah.
but it's like no one makes called shots in D&D. Like there's no reason to aim for the head. So like they had to put in just like if it takes more than 25 damage in a single turn, one of its heads dies, and it's like well, but like that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's you're trying to get around the like chopping off the heads, but like there's no reason to try and chop
Yeah.
off the
Yeah.
heads.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is. Isn't there not mechanics to call shots? Although they're all like disadvantage if you do that.
they are, but it's like
But there's no way to
I think
track it.
there's also the fact that like for any other monster, there's no benefit to it really.
It would have
Like
been,
there's
I think, a good way to. I didn't mean to interrupt. I think
oh
a
you
good way to. They could have got around with the Hydra thing is give each head its own hit points and AC.
mm-hmm.
So you could target the head and do it that way.
Yep, have it be like separate
Like
creatures. Yeah,
tentacles, they do that for tentacles. Some tentacles have their own AC and hit
it's
points.
true. Yeah, I think yeah, like I think there is a lot of stuff where like you need a system that supports those kind of things where
Yeah.
it's like yeah, this needs to be a thing that you would try on other stuff. It's like every creature needs a benefit for trying to cut the head off immediately if you're going to try it on the Hydra.
Yeah.
But there's like if you're going to fight an ogre and there's no real benefit to a cold shot to the neck, there's no real benefit to a cold shot to the neck to a Hydra.
I had a false Hydra hiding out in the tower, the wizard tower.
I love false Hydras. They're so good. This is like my favorite fan made creature.
Because you can just forget about it.
Yeah, because it's an entire adventure. It's an entire adventure and mystery in one
Yeah.
creature. Like it that that's one of those things where it's like there are some creatures where you read the description and you're like, I have an adventure here. I have an entire. It's not just an encounter. It's not just a combat encounter. It's like I have an entire mystery adventure. Like I just plop this somewhere and there is a whole like session worth of content,
Yeah. I really wanted to run
possibly
it.
more. Yeah.
I was so excited because, yeah, it's like one of those monsters that you can just not be aware of it being there, which is real
Hmm.
bad.
Yep. I want to. I so want to run one in a town. Honestly, a false hydra is the kind of one I would put into like an occult fantasy
Because
one where like demon,
yeah.
where it's like you go and you arrive in a town. There's this many people in town, and then like you get up the next day, and there's like you go into town. There's 10 people in the tap room. There's always 10 people in the tap room at the end. You go to bed. You go out adventuring. You do some stuff. You come back. There's 9 people in the tap room, just like there's always 9 people in the tap room of the inn. And
Yep.
then you go back upstairs. And it's like, wait, didn't you say 10 yesterday? And it's like, no, you think about it. No, it was definitely 9. And then it's like, essentially, though granted, you got to be careful. You do have to be a little careful with stuff like that because it's like, it's creepy, but on the other hand, it is just like essentially gaslighting your players.
Yeah, for sure.
Which, like,
Which that's a good thing to cover in a session 0.
yes,
Would
exactly.
y'all be cool with fighting a creature that kind of gaslights you?
Yeah. Or like, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like if you're, asking players in a session 0, like, would you be like, uh, how do you feel about like creatures or effects that cause, or like handling creatures or effects in a way that causes like a doubting of like a little
Yeah.
bit of a doubting of reality or questioning reality because like for some people like for me I would be like oh hell yeah that like I love that kind of stuff where it's like
Same.
I have this weird disconnect but like for a lot of other people that's very like
Yeah.
that's not a fun time so
Yeah.
having that be something that's ha- having that be something where it's like you can handle that differently too where you can just be like yes, I said 10 yesterday, but your character remembers 9. And then, like, the player then, like,
Yeah.
how much, it's kind of like how much you separate the layers of the narrative and the separation of character and player
Yeah.
when it comes to, like, effects like that.
Yeah, I feel like something like that would you'd have to. You might need to explicitly tell them like, hey, there is something fucky going on, but your character is only aware of this,
Yeah.
so no one feels like they're being gaslighted. I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, what is your most favorite dungeon you've made? The game is called Dungeons and Dragons.
It is. I also very rarely run dungeons.
Me
I
too.
don't know if you noticed. Yeah, it's because it's a
The
natural thing in the game. That's how the game started back in the '70s. But
the prep for them sucks.
it does, and also just like it's dungeons kill role playing kind of
Yeah.
like.
Especially if you give them the map and they like just have to like.
Yeah,
I've noticed
yeah.
that when we do our Run the Frostbane campaign, it really slogs down when I give them a dungeon map. Now I
Hmm.
just don't. It's theater of the
Yep.
mind. If they need a battle map, here you go.
That's
But
yeah. I kind of because when we would run stuff, it'd be like because you'd give us the battle map or something. It was like it kind of feels, especially on Roll20, it's like we're playing a video game. Like I'd be using the arrow keys to just like move around from room to room,
yeah,
and it's like especially just like exploring empty rooms in a dungeon. It's like I don't like running that because it's just like yeah, you go into this room
and
and
it's
you
empty.
find nothing. Yep.
Yeah, so I think because I so I think for me with dungeons, I there's two methods of design that I do for them. If it's for a campaign like this, like a stream, well not like
Hmm.
this, but if it's like a stream campaign, um, or when I design of like my own creation for a campaign, it's not gonna be designed like a adventure module dungeon
Hmm.
because adventure module dungeons you're meant to be there for a while probably
Yep.
exploring it. I like to do kind of like streamlined dungeons for my streams, which I've been trying to do a little more often. Like the
Hmm.
temple where you all went to go fight the Dracolich. That room. Well, that one was more just like the path forward is the path forward,
Yep.
and there were maybe rooms that you could look into that had interesting things in them.
Hmm.
But like, I like designing dungeons. Like, there's a dungeon I'm designing for DM's Guild, and it's technically a randomly generating dungeon.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
the characters, and I'm putting it into my world, I think, because it's such a cool idea.
Hmm.
But the characters, basically, when they go there, they get a little token, like a little coin,
Hmm.
and that coin lets them activate maybe objects that are in the dungeon. But once they use it, the coin's consumed. And
Hmm.
the only way they can get more coins is by clearing a floor of the dungeon. The entire party gets one coin. They have to share these tokens. It
Oh,
can't
that's
just
really
be one
cool.
character hoarding them. They have to share them, and the dungeon can't be teleported in or out of.
Nice.
And the dungeon has these little like places, like these little purple lanterns that are kind of hung up around the dungeon, and those are safe places the party can rest because those lanterns give off a tiny hut effect that can't be
Mm.
dispelled. So they can kind of just chill in there for a bit, and get up, and continue on. But every time they leave a floor of the dungeon, they have to use these weird like arcane elevators almost.
Hmm.
And then the DM rolls a D100 to determine what floor they get sent to.
Nice.
So it could be a first level party getting sent to a floor that's designed for like a 15th level party.
Oh no.
And if they arrive in a floor that's too like you know advanced for them, the guy who created the dungeon, who runs the dungeon, he isn't hostile. He isn't an antagonist. He just likes to watch people attempt it. And if someone ends up on a floor, they're probably gonna die. He'll like send a little message to them, warning them like, "Hey, you can turn back if you'd like. I'll reset the dungeon for you for free, so you don't get murdered, or you can choose to
Hmm.
press forward. It's your choice."
Yeah.
And if they choose to press forward, they choose to press forward. If they don't, they
Yeah.
don't. So that's been a cool thing to design is like a dungeon that's like you could you could be a 20th level party going into the dungeon and ending up on a floor built for first level parties and just steamroll it.
Hmm.
Or you could be a first level party ending up on a dungeon for a 20th level party, and that might be bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, dungeons are fun. I think, but yeah, I've noticed the prep time for them. You need to prep a lot for a dungeon. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to run a dungeon on the fly. I think improv style dungeons,
Hmm.
because like dungeons, puzzles are fun to have in dungeons. Puzzles made up on the fly.
Hmm.
Thankfully, the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything book has dungeons puzzles you can just throw out on the fly.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
I think the other thing is like the normal way we think about like the adventure module way of thinking about dungeons kind of tries to restrict player creativity a lot.
mm-hmm.
It's like you imagine a dungeon is just like a series of caverns underground, a set of rooms. They branch off, or they're in a straight line. You can go and explore these different rooms. There's monsters and treasure, benefits, whatever in the certain rooms. You eventually get to the room that has the biggest monster in it. You go and kill it. You get the biggest benefit.
Yeah.
You leave, and like it's a very video game
Yeah.
setting because it's like because it also like it kind of it forces you to like twist your mind a little bit because it's like, well, why are these monsters here? Like what has been like what kind of ecosystem has allowed them to just sit here? Are they just sitting here waiting for adventures? Are they doing things? Do they move around?
Yeah.
Like because it's you can plan a dungeon out and be like, yeah, there's this monster in this room, and then like the players will come by and see the monster. Then maybe they send the rogue ahead and they're like, oh, there's a monster in that room, and they leave. They come back 3 days later. Why is that monster still in that same? It hasn't left this room for
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah.
It's like unless it's a construct or an undead or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
does this thing have a routine? Does it do stuff? Does it ever leave?
That's why I really like the like Undermountain, the 5th
Mm-hmm.
edition like mega dungeon. Well, the mega
Yeah.
dungeon that's been around in the Forgotten Realms for so long,
Right.
because each dungeon is kind of like each floor of the dungeon is massive,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of its own ecosystem each floor. So like one
Mm-hmm.
of the floors is a massive forest just underground, so it gives a reason
Right.
for creatures to be there and wander. But there's also like rules for like, hey, these monsters will wander; they won't just stay in the same spot the entire time. Um, and like for the dungeon I'm making, because that's the thing. I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would these monsters just stick around? How are they alive?
Mm-hmm.
So the dungeon I'm making is if a monster is slain in the dungeon, it is resurrected 24 hours later,
Mm.
so it can keep just going. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
monsters hide out in this dungeon so they can never be fully destroyed.
Mm.
But also the guy who created the dungeon can just be like, you know what, you're getting a little problematic here, and just stop that. So that's a way I think I've found a way to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, what if these creatures just starve to death? Well, then they come back 24 hours later. But
Mm-hmm.
characters don't. Like adventurers don't if they're in a dungeon.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I've noticed now when I prep dungeons for, especially like Beneath the Tide, it's just bullet notes. It's like, here's what
Yep.
this room might have. Boom. Here's what this room might have. Boom. Here's what this room will have. Boom. Because if I was running a dungeon like they're written in the module, that's like 30 pages. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the Wizard Tower was a good 46 pages worth of notes because
Right, because there's a lot there.
it's a bunch of demi-planes stacked on top of each other,
Mm-hmm.
which is very cool for Wizard Tower, I thought. But there's no way your players are going to run through that entire place. There was no way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so realistically, I probably could have made it less, but I just had so much fun thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
and especially making it other planes of existence, so it's not just room, cold corridor, corridor, corridor. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this room's the elemental plane of fire, but they can only traverse it in this boat,
Mm-hmm.
which. So mad I never got to do my Iron Golem encounter in that because
Oh,
Iron
that's right.
Golems get healed by fire, and
Mm-hmm.
it was chilling in the lava, so it would have just kept getting healed on its turn
Yep.
by lava, and lava does a lot of damage, so it would have been getting healed by a lot.
Yep. Um, yeah. I mean, I like if I'm gonna do a dungeon, I like it being a dungeon for a reason. Like the challenges in the dungeon being there for a reason. Like the one that you all went through with Ilvam to go and like for it
Yeah.
was literally a test. Like the dungeon was it was a temple. It was a divine temple that a god put together to create a test for Ilvam
Mm-hmm.
specifically. So it was like the things in there that you dealt with, the thing outside like was a door guardian, it was a construct, and everything inside was like meant to react to you. Or like the Windwell was technically a dungeon, but it was populated by people because it was like a historical site that's otherwise empty, but that these people have like populated.
Yeah, I
And
think.
like
Oh, sorry. Continue.
I was gonna say and stuff like that where it's just like it's pop the you know it's not just sitting there. It's not just the classic dungeon of just like this is just sitting there and you can wander and stumble upon it and go inside and fight some monsters and clear it out and take their stuff.
Yeah, that's boring.
Yeah.
Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's yeah. I feel like dungeons the way they're designed. Yeah, like you said, it's very video gamey.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's probably like one of the things that is like harkening back to first edition D&D because it's very much a tactical kind of
Mm-hmm.
wargaming thing. So that's still kind of the integral thing of it. But I like dungeons that don't feel like it's a dungeon,
Mm-hmm.
like a chapel, like a church
Yeah.
that's been kind of fucked up, or like the temple that I had in the jungle. It was a dungeon. It was a dungeon crawl, but I designed it in a way so it didn't feel like that. I hope, at least. But like that one I adapted multiple times. Like I fucked with it multiple times because when you guys first were on that island in the campaign, it wasn't Abishai
Hmm.
populating it. It was Yanti. Like more
Oh yeah.
stuff catered towards the level, because
Hmm.
Abishai are deadly.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I had a story in my head. I'm like, well, there's a demon obelisk out front that was summoning demons. What if those demons murdered everything inside the temple and it was retaken by Tiamat's cultists? So
Hmm.
yeah, like there was the Dracolich was always in the bottom of the temple. So if you guys had gone to the temple at an early level, you would have uncovered a Dracolich, but
Oh
he would have
boy.
been like, "Oh, you're not powerful enough to kind of put me to my rest that I need. Come back when you're stronger." Because
Hmm.
his whole thing was he wanted to be destroyed to finally get some peace.
Right.
And yeah, he was destroyed, and yeah, so I can reveal that then. If Eclipse had powered the dagger, that would have been her fate. She would have been sealed inside that tomb.
Oh boy.
Yeah. At the end of the campaign, Tiamat would have been like, okay, you can. She would have turned Eclipse into an ancient red Dracolich. Not an ancient red, but would have turned her into a Dracolich. No. She would turn her into like a dragon, though, like an undead red dragon. But then Eclipse would have had to have rest in that place with the
Mm.
dagger. And then the dagger would have been. Well, the dagger would have been destroyed, but she still would have been sealed into that temple. And that would have been her character's ending, was you're stuck in there. But there was enough people being like, yeah, I don't know if these artifacts are the best. And then, yeah, they weren't. Uh, yeah. Do you have any questions about Beneath the Tide that might not be spoilery? I want to answer so many that wouldn't spoil the
Uh,
ending.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't know if I have any right now, but what is there something you're thinking of right now? You're like, I would love to share this.
Too many things that I know wouldn't spoil anything. There was a Sunken Lord fight. If you guys would have fought the Sunken Lord, I had a huge encounter for that. That was exciting.
Oh, nice.
It would have been like the Sunken Lord if he was summoned. Like if he was, if you guys had finally like fought him, he was immune to all damage.
Oh.
So ships would have been like shooting him with cannons, and you guys would have gotten the information that he can only be destroyed by going inside of him and destroying his 6 hearts. So he
Mm.
would have had to have been swallowed by the Sunken Lord and traverse through a dungeon, which is his insides,
Mm-hmm.
and
Jabba Jabba's belly.
yeah, destroy the 5 hearts and then go get back, find a way out as the parasites that are like infesting his body are chasing after you, and then get out and then kill him. Oh, we do got a question though. What would have happened? Oh, it's a question about Beneath the Tide. What would have happened if Leah hadn't released Asmodeus? Sunken Lord would have been the main antagonist. That's what I was
So
set.
that fight you were just
Yeah,
describing.
yeah, that's what I was setting up. I was setting up the Sunken Lord to be the antagonist because a giant aberrant kraken kind of fits the pirate setting.
Mm-hmm. And then we
Uh,
released the devil.
and then I thought, what if we did? Then I thought like, oh, it'd be really cool, like a cabin in the woods esque thing where all these artifacts could release an entity. So there was the Worldbreaker artifacts that if they were destroyed or some capacity would release those entities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Sunken Lord was the lesser of the Worldbreakers, so he could have been released in a multitude of ways because he wasn't really a huge world-ending threat. He would have like slowly have flooded the continent over the period of like decades, and eventually the
Mm-hmm.
continent would have become a new elemental plane of water, or the world would have become a new elemental plane of water. No, the continent, Ipshire, yeah, Ipshire would have become basically all underwater, would have been lost. Um, so that's what would have happened. It would have been the Sunken Lord, or if the party had been hunting the Worldbreaker artifacts, one of the Worldbreakers could have been an antagonist, like Lolth or Atropus or that kind of stuff, or Ash.
Nice.
I was setting up the Stormfather to be to be around a little longer. Yeah.
Nice.
Ooh, I have a question for Soldiers of
Yeah.
the Lich Queen. If you can answer it,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, ask and I'll tell you if I can answer it.
I feel like the answer is yes. Are we going to see more Illithid soon?
That is entirely up to you all. Like
I
the whole
want it to be soon.
your goal. Let me tell you, your goal as was stated at the beginning of all this, was
Yeah.
you need to go find Illithid and kill them, and then you've completed your initiation. And you did just have someone who you spend a lot of time with tell you that he has spent a good amount of time in the Underdark.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, so like,
I just want to go to the Underdark so bad.
yeah, it's an option.
Because that's
Like,
my.
I think at this point you gotta get Ilvum back and like finish this section, but then
Yeah.
like next up, that is right there for you if you want to go do it.
And try to get the party on the same page.
Yeah, see what's going on with that.
Oh, yeah, I got a question actually for you that isn't pertaining to the campaigns.
Yeah, what's up?
Because I think you've been having to do this recently, possibly. Um, how do you handle a party that just refuses to work together
Hmm.
and
I
always
think
wants to like split up when they're somewhere?
I think that for me, it's like splitting up is not necessarily the worst, especially if I can get if I have encounters for both of them. Like I think I did this. I forget which session I did this. Oh, I did this in Bastion, where you're all in different places.
Yeah.
But I ran all of the encounters at the same time using the same initiative
Yeah,
order.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
just like when we got to a person, we just went to the encounter they were in. So it's like I'll run things separately, but generally, if it's a matter of just like the party doesn't want to work together, um, in order to get a sense of like, I think a sense of unity in a party is important. Like I will purposefully guide the story and put things in front of the party in order to like provide them experiences to try and get a certain outcome, kind of.
Yeah.
So like, oh, the party's not necessarily like on the same page or working together. I'm going to put up a challenge in front of them that threatens all of them, that all of them are going to want to face off against, and then that's going to be a unifying moment for them. So that way, if after that moment, well, they just spent some time working together, and like maybe they're going to be like more inclined to wanting to work together in the future about stuff and like each other more because they just went through something together that
Yeah.
no one wanted to like be like, well, this is your problem.
That's why I've been having so much fun with just like the Drew and Sid stuff, or the Hannibal
Hmm.
and Sid stuff, because like they never really worked together
Hmm.
previously, and it's been really cool to like give Hannibal a reason to hang out and actually like work with Sid. So that's been really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's been really cool.
Yeah.
I've been trying to do it because in Realm of the Frostmaiden, the party just does not get along,
Hmm.
which can be draining a little bit as a DM. It's like, can you guys just please work together? It'll make everything so much easier for me. Like one of the characters wanders off when they're
Hmm.
having a rest and gets like kidnapped by frost giants. I'm like, this is the consequences of you wandering off on your own in Icewind Dale when
Hmm.
everything is like a blizzard constantly right now, and got kidnapped by a frost giant, and I didn't sink in. So it's been hard, but I've been finding ways to do it,
Hmm.
and thankfully, um, uh, the characters have been like talking it out and like trying to like get each other to work together. It's like, this is really annoying. The characters are like, you're gonna get us killed. Like, this is reckless. Like, stop. We just need to work together for this. And then, you know, and I mean, if they're not gonna work together, there's gonna be consequences. I think if they keep
Hmm.
refusing to like help each other out or like work together, then there has to be a consequence. Like, hey, maybe one of them will just die because there wasn't anyone there to help them. um, yeah, that was my question, really.
Yeah.
Any other questions, chat? If you've been watching Beneath the Tide, any questions you want answered, or any questions about any of my campaigns? I run one, two, three campaigns, soon to be four again. So, any questions? My Call of Cthulhu game, I have so much to talk about that I ran. That was a lot of fun. I definitely recommend if you want to branch out and learn more as a game master, especially run different systems.
Hmm.
Because if you only run D&D, you're only going to run your games like you run D&D.
Hmm.
And Call of Cthulhu opened up many a possibility. Because guess what? No battle maps in Call of Cthulhu because
Hmm.
there isn't. It's not built like that. It's built very much like everyone has a set turn order. You can do one action per turn. This is how it works out. And Call of Cthulhu is a really great system if you ever want to like. If anyone ever wants to branch out and try different RPGs and stuff, Call of Cthulhu is a lot of fun, especially if you like consequences. They give you some consequences.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Well, I just noticed my name is Dungeon Daddy on the thing. Has been
Yeah,
Dungeon Daddy for the last 2 hours.
it has been, yes.
Yep. Well, if nobody has any more questions, do we want to say see you until Wednesday at this point?
Yeah, you won't be seeing us until Wednesday for some spicy last campaign closing sessions.
Some planning.
Yeah, 2 more long rests the party have.
Yep.
Because it's currently 5 p.m. in my world when they get back, so they actually have less than 2 days.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. Got a lot of fun stuff working behind the scenes of that campaign of what's going to happen during the final encounter.
Oh,
Some
boy,
stuff
I'm
Sam
excited.
and I have talked about, some stuff that
Mm-hmm.
I have up my sleeve. If you want to watch me be turned into an anxious mess, come out to see the Asmodeus fight when that happens. It's going to be a longer session because we're going to be switching to 9:30 p.m. Eastern time,
Woo.
starting soon because again, yeah, people have to work in the morning the following day, and I don't have to cram a bunch of shit into the sessions like I have been doing lately. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, we got Rhyme of the Frost Maiden on Thursday. They're about to get to a major location in that campaign. So that's fun. Wildmount campaign is still going strong on Wednesdays. That's been a lot of fun. They're about to assault a fortress or perform a heist in a fortress. Who really knows? Um, and that harkens back to the dungeon prep discussion because, oh, that's draining. Um, and then, yeah, we got Soldiers of Lich Queen picking up where we left off last Sunday, whenever that comes back. Hopefully next
Mm-hmm.
week.
Should be next week.
Because I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that. And then starting in May, towards the end of May, we're doing a Ravenloft campaign using the new setting book coming out for 5th edition. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Get hyped.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And I think that's everything. I guess we have a Patreon.
Yeah.
Check it out, please. Because yeah, we're gonna be doing monthly little encounters and dungeons and stuff for your tables if you want a little fun adventure to throw into your campaigns, like a haunted house. Haunted houses are fun for D&D, I think, because you got a lot of fun options to mess around with that don't have to be ghosts causing the phenomenon. Um, yeah. And also, our Discord is great, but no one really talks about it. So, yeah, that's it from me.
All right.
We'll probably do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Maybe when Beneath the Tide ends, we could just get
Mm-hmm.
an onslaught of questions.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point, maybe bring all the cast from Beneath the Tide together just to ask me questions.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
That could be fun. And also, maybe there'll be questions I can't answer because some answers might show up in the next campaign. So, like a Dracolich that was never stocked. Anyways, that's it. I think.
Yeah.
We'll see you all Wednesday. I'll be doing a meeting at 9:30 with some people, doing our session 0 for the Ravenloft campaign in about 2 hours. That will not be streamed because session 0 I don't think should be streamed. Anyways, good night, everybody.
Yeah.